In this video, we're talking about Bob Chapek reaching out to fan sites, having a sit-down interview with multiple fan sites. Crazy, crazy news on that front. We're also going to talk about MagicBand Plus coming to the Disneyland Resort. We have a lot to talk about today with my good friend Vash Sky on OG 55. Welcome back to another episode of Orange Grove 55. I brought my good friend, my collaborator, my producer, Vash Sky, Dr. Dre, host of the Freshly Squeezed show here on the channel. You know what? Let's go ahead and give Dre his intro, just for good measure.
And now, the man with many titles, bringing you juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. Mr. Vash Sky.
Well.
Okay.
Thank you. I got you. No, it's. I do appreciate you playing that drop there. I it's pretty. It's honestly, it's humbling. I do. Anybody who's a fan of mine or of the show or of my contribution to the show, I do take that very seriously. So thank you so much, OG, for that. I gotta be honest. As much as I love being on the road and seeing everything and being at the parks and everything like that, the one thing that gets me is I can't contribute to the show as much as I'd like to. So it's really good to get back in the saddle and being able to contribute to the show however I can. So I really do appreciate, sir. Thank you for that. Hey, and if you want to go ahead and follow me, you can go and do so right down there at Vash Sky. Go ahead and type that in. Should pop up in the Twitters right there for, as Christine Waysigns McCarthy would say, for all the robust discussion, right? And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on channel you're watching right now at Orange Grove 55 at Freshly Squeezed. Your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. There you go. So I think we should get started.
I think we should. We're going to start off with Bobby C. So this is very, very interesting indeed. Now, this is from Attractions Magazine. And title is My Lunch with Disney CEO Bob Chapek. So it goes on to say here, Attractions Magazine was one of a few Disney fan media companies selected to have a private meeting with Disney CEO Bob Chapek during the D23 Expo 2022. Although Bob's comments were quote unquote off the record, here are my impressions. And he goes into that. I will definitely link the article down below. You can get like a full rundown. One of my pet peeves with content creators is that a lot of times they'll pull up an article and they'll literally read you the entire article. You guys can read. Go ahead and read it if you want. We're going to break it down, analyze the basic meat and potatoes here, though, and kind of give you our opinions and dive into this. Now, right. Dre, this is kind of fascinating. I mean, this is something pretty unheard of that a CEO of such a big company like Disney would take time to sit down with a lot of these, Disney fan sites. Typically with a CEO, you'd see them sit down with like maybe CNBC or one of these big outlets, Good Morning America, right? Or something like that. For Bob Chapek to reach out to these sites, which we were told it was Bobby C's idea to reach out to these fan sites, to have a sit down and kind of, I guess, talk shop and kind of get to know them and have them get to know him. I think it was a pretty good move on Chapek's part. What are your overall thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a pretty good move. I mean, look, some people were, they were a little bit, let's say, apathetic towards this kind of notion here, saying, well, he's just trying to, improve his image and stuff like that. I mean, look, let's be fair here. He might be looking to improve his image. He might be looking for more, outreach towards this kind of segment of the fan community who has been, honestly, the most critical of him, right? I mean, we hear even on other commentary sites or podcasts or YouTube channels. It's like, oh yeah, he really gets it from the parks people all the time, and he does. Let's be honest here. So to have him actually sit down with Attractions Magazine, and some others who are very closely connected to this world. I mean, that's look, this is kind of what we've wanted and we got it. So how can you really be upset is my feeling. I mean, look, could you imagine Brian Roberts doing this in Orlando and then taking people to, view the Epic Universe site? I mean, who wouldn't love that? Who wouldn't be thrilled by that? I think, honestly, this is a pretty good move and something that we would never see, as you astutely have pointed out on Twitter, a Bob Iger doing this. I mean, I couldn't imagine any other CEO doing this, and you have to commend him for, reaching out at least a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, and 100%, 100%. And I saw a lot of that on social media. I made a tweet saying, has Bob Iger ever done this? And the response was sort of like, overall, well, Bob Iger never had to do this. Well, here's the thing, though. Bob Chapek doesn't necessarily have to do this either. He just got renewed for 3 years. And the people that hate his guts, believe it or not, is a very small percentage of the public. Most people don't even know who the CEO is or care enough to know. It doesn't really sway people, the normies, the general public, one way or the other. Right. Okay. So the small community of diehards that are upset with Chapek is not going to make or break this guy's job. The fans hated him before he got renewed, and he still got renewed. So now he's been renewed. He even has less reason to do this, and yet he still did it. He still did it. And I hear this whole thing about, well, he only did it because he had to. Well, here's the thing. It's like being in a relationship with someone, and your spouse says to you, well, I really wish you would work on some of these things, and then you work on those things. Do you just poo-poo that person? Well, they're only working on these things because they have to. No, you give that person credit for acknowledging they fucked up and they're trying to do better. Yeah. Now, here's another thing. Talking about PR, when was the last time Kathleen Kennedy, who a lot of fans hate, believe it or not, a lot of fans do not like Kathleen Kennedy, when's the last time she ever did this? You want to talk about needing to do something? She needs to do it too, and she's never done it. At least Chapek has done that and has reached out, and I commend him for it, and this is a great move.
Yeah, especially at such a controversial time as well. Like you said, he doesn't really need to do this at all. Like you said, he got extended for 3 years, and this has been a very tumultuous time for the Disney company. So in order to the fact that he would even attempt something like this during this most tumultuous and controversial time, it's commendable. Now I understand I guess he mandated that it be off the record and so forth, and it was kind of a controlled environment. I'm not saying those things didn't exist, but of course, to do it at all, I mean that's noteworthy. And apparently, they gave Attractions Magazine and some of the others that were there, they had him sit at 21 Royal Street, but after that they took him by van over to the Mickey's Toontown construction site, and had him go through Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, had him walk the track, had him walk the queue, and apparently Chapek, he got in the van with him. Wow. They thought that he was going to be whisked away either to whatever duties that he had going on, or maybe if he did attend, maybe it was going to be in his own private transportation. But no, he just hopped in the van with him and went with him. Cool. I mean, look, I can't not like that. I'm sorry. I know. Usually, we are. I do bring like a cynical edge to all this, to this whole thing, but I'm sorry. I kind of like that. I kind of like that he's kind of reaching out. I kind of like that he's kind of making the effort, because honestly, we don't really see this, not just from CEOs of the Walt Disney Company or even executives from Walt Disney Company, but CEOs in general. Right.
And this is something that I was actually suggesting Chapek do months ago. Now, I suggested that he should sit down with like a John Campea. So, I mean, obviously that didn't pan out, but he went more the park route and sat down with fan sites, theme park fan sites.
Right.
And so I think it's a good move. I've been on camera many times months ago saying that, he needs to do something like this. He needs to kind of get off the teleprompter and come down on a fan level and talk to fans. And here's the thing too, strategically, it's a great move because what this does is it kind of takes all the wind out of the sails on the anti-Chapek movement, at least for these particular fan sites that sat down with him. Because now Chapek's a person they actually met. Now they've met the guy, and I'm sure he's really nice in person. I'm sure he was very friendly and nice in this meeting. So now these fan sites, not to say they're compromised, but now that they've met him, I think their approach when it comes to analyzing his decisions will be different. It's different. Yeah. I mean, our buddy Pete over at the Diz, he's good friends with Josh D'Amaro. Now, Pete's very critical of Josh D'Amaro, but he's also friends with Josh D'Amaro. And that relationship does sort of impact his approach because he knows Josh. He knows Josh is a good guy. Same thing that is, I think, will happen here is that now Chapek, for these particular fan sites, is not the big bad boogeyman, one-dimensional villain, bald man bad. It's a real person who was actually nice to them and was cordial and polite. It's a little harder now to go after him like just full bore like you might have before. So I think from a strategic level, this is a really smart move on Chapek's part.
There's definitely I should say, additional compulsion to humanize him. Which, let's be honest here, I mean, that's probably a good thing for Chapek because a lot of people just see him as a suit or a name on some executive spreadsheet. I mean, I think it's important to humanize these people because they are, people. And I think even in this little Attractions magazine, I don't know, article, they kind of humanized him a little bit. He jumped in the back of the van and wanted to join them and was very approachable. It took every single question that was answered, no matter how hard it got, kind of thing. And you do make an interesting point about the John Campea thing, right? The fact that he went the parks route kind of reflects he's a little bit more comfortable with this space, and he always has been. And I think it's. Chapek's not a Bob Iger. He's kind of a Midwestern hokey kind of dude, and all of those things kind of reflect that attitude. And I think it's good that he embraced that, and that's why I think it's good that he actually do this in this forum because he hadn't before, and you can see him get more comfortable with his position, his role, but also doing it his way. And I think this is a reflection of his style.
No, 100%, 100%. We talk about Bob Iger a lot on this show. Sorry, Rankin the Mouse. Yeah.
Yeah,
sorry, buddy.
We do.
But we do talk about Bob Iger. And look, to be fair, Bob Iger was not a terrible CEO. Bob Iger did a lot of wonderful things for the Walt Disney Company, but there was a lot about Bob Iger that wasn't great. And one of the not so great things about Bob Iger was you never saw Bob Iger just walking around Disneyland Resort for no reason. You never saw that. He was only there if there was a big media event. And if the media event it was like a star-studded thing. Like George Lucas was there.
Right.
Or he'll go to the NBA experience because they had head of the NBA commission or whoever was there and he wants to buy a basketball team. So then it's worth his time, right? So it was a bunch of that. With Chapek, though, to be fair, we've seen him in the parks a lot. And even for very small events like the 122nd return of the Main Street Electrical Parade. Works for that. It was not a big deal. This parade has come back a million times.
Right.
He was there for that. And that says something. We see him at the parks a lot. Whenever you see him interviewed with the trades or any of these outlets, he always uses the parks as an example.
Yeah.
Like politics. He'll be like, when people walk into a Disney park, they leave their politics aside. This is about storytelling, and it's always from that park perspective. He loves these parks, and I do really believe that. I do think he really enjoys these parks, and I do agree with you, Dre. I think he feels much more comfortable with the parks than the whole Hollywood, smoozy end of things, and that's the big deal with him and Iger, I think.
It is. I mean, Iger was very much Hollywood. He was very much entertainment. He was very much, the star-studded cast, the red carpet, the parties, all of that kind of thing. We saw him attend a number of Oscars, for example. Right. He liked that world. Whereas Chapek, Not so much. His home really is on the park side of things. It's quite interesting to see that juxtaposition of styles reflected in such a very interesting way. But I will say I was kind of going through this article a little bit, and the humanization factor looks like it paid off, because Attractions Magazine writes, and quote, "He was very personable, down to earth, and gave reasonable, common sense answers to all of our questions." That small bit of ingratiation, goes a long way.
Yeah.
And I think is that was part of the reason why he did it, and I think it paid off. And I think if he reaches out more, he becomes less of that villain kind of character,
Right.
and more of a person who's willing to sit down with you. And even though you'll maybe disagree with him, most likely you will, you'll at least understand his position and where he's coming from, so that you can better rationalize it as a fan, or from a fan's perspective, on what actually is going on, which is kind of, I don't know, what we try to do on here.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
Exactly.
listen, we don't necessarily agree with a lot of this stuff either, but a lot of people, they forget that some of this stuff is being done for a reason, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but it's important to understand those things. And so, Chapek doing this, I don't know. I'll give him the applause. I think it's a good move. Overall. A lot of people can be critical. A lot of people can be cynical, but overall, I think it's a good move.
Absolutely.
Apologize for not being the ally that you needed me to be.
Well, no apologies needed, Chapek, because you're doing the right thing right now. Keep doing this. Keep reaching out to fans. And just keep doing what you're doing, because I think it is working, and I do think it's something that will definitely improve your image, number one, but number two, overall help the Walt Disney Company. Right? It's always good when the CEO has a better reputation, and I think that anything you can do to sort of move in that direction is a good thing. But we got more to talk about today.
We do. Lots more. So this is the debut video. I'll go ahead and just play the video. I don't know if the audio is going to be, copywritten or whatever, but debut video of a new thing, MagicBand Plus, coming to the Disneyland Resort. And honestly, I was a little skeptical on whether or not this was even going to roll out at all for a little bit there. But I think one of the things that we were most kind of interested in was what kind of features and functionality we would actually get regarding this product as it makes its debut for the first time out the Disneyland Resort. And now we have more of a clear understanding. Of course, they're going to integrate the the MagicBand Plus features, right? So, got the glow of the show right there. You've got, the Batu Bounty Hunters experience that we've seen so much of. We saw construction of that actually recently within Disneyland, so we knew that was kind of coming. But it's interesting because they bring out two things that I thought was actually very kind of interesting, and something I hadn't seen rolled out, at least on the one of them, at least not on the Walt Disney World end, I don't think, but another one we've become familiar with. So they have this section here. You can check in at Lightning Lane. That's good. But you can also link your Disney PhotoPass photos with it. So they have kind of a scanner there. And you see the little boy there has his MagicBand scanned by a kind of a personal device right there. Also, too, you have integrations in the, you have integrations for their mobile devices that they already handed out the cast members at the entrance of Disneyland itself. I thought that was kind of interesting. That was a little bit more functionality than I thought was coming to this. I thought it was just going to be the
gimmick,
the gimmick stuff, and not have really any functionality included. But it looks like there is some functionality, at least on day one, and that is commendable. But we'll get into more of that. Your thoughts, OG?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this coming to Disneyland Resort, I think a few months ago, and my big thing was, if it's all gimmick and no functionality, I will not spend the money on it. I did not care about Glow with the Show ears that came out a few years ago. It's a gimmick. Don't care about it. The one thing that interests me with MagicBand is the convenience factor, so putting all your stuff in your band. So you have your pass, your credit card information, whatever you need is in there, and it's convenient. So for me personally, this kind of brings me a little closer to getting one because of that functionality. I could care less about whether it lights up during the fireworks or not. Stupid. I really don't care about that at all.
Yeah, that's what we need. You see the little boy there. Let me see if I can get this here. To your point, you see the little boy. It's got the MagicBand up there. That's what we need. More visual interference from the crowd level when looking at these spectaculars. Good stuff right there. I agree. Good stuff.
like if everyone's cell phones weren't enough.
Yes.
Now you got one more freaking thing, you know.
Yeah. You got the kids on shoulders. You got the balloons. You got the phones, and now you got the MagicBands. Fantastic. It's great.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. I mean, this is interesting. It is interesting that they're coming to Disneyland Resort. I don't know. I mean, it's fascinating. I kind of have to like get one and use it and kind of give like a real opinion on it. Like, I'm more drawn to it now, knowing there's real functionality to it than I was. But we'll have to kind of wait and see. I'm kind of curious. And I actually do think it's smart for Disney to utilize those the cast members to utilize those hand scanners,
yes,
and handheld scanners. I think that's better. I think than having it like a built-in scanner. I think that adds a lot more flexibility to what they can do with it, and I like that a lot actually.
It is. I mean, you know, when MagicBand first rolled out as part of My Magic Plus so long ago. You know, it was a little, you know, it was, let's say, a stepping stone for people having ubiquitous mobile devices, right? I mean, at the time that it rolled out, a lot of people didn't have smartphones. Obviously, some people had cell phones, but didn't have the same capabilities and features and functions and so forth. So it was kind of a stepping road, you know, before smartphones became more ubiquitous in the Western market. You had to have kind of an intermediary device to kind of link up all the services that Disney wanted to provide for its guests, and that's really what the MagicBand became. It was this kind of intermediary device before people had cell phones that had a lot of these functions built in. They all had a mobile device in which to connect with and link to and communicate with and so forth. So that was always kind of like the thing that, you know, there was a lot of things that held it up at Disneyland, but that was one of them. It was like, well, cell phones are coming out. Do we undercut this huge cost for a kind of a locally driven market, which has its own kind of caveats and such, or do we just wait? So that's kind of why I was kind of like, I don't know if MagicBands are coming at all, but they obviously are. How so? Well, they're going a more cost-effective route, utilizing technology that they've already installed, built in, and so forth, like with the mobile phones that cast members have on them already. You know, right. They just integrate those services in. And that's one of the reasons I think why MagicBand Plus is going to be the only version of MagicBand that it will be functional within the Disneyland Resort. They're not going to, they're not going to extend that functionality out to MagicBands 1.0, 2.0. It's only going to be with this new 3.0 version. Which I think is like, okay, I can kind of see what they're doing. They are also saying that more functionality will be coming on the way. So cool. It'll be interesting to see what new functionality that they'll bring out. The big day one, I'd say, omission would be hotel access. So one of the big features at Walt Disney World that guests enjoy over there is that your MagicBand, not only can it be your credit card, your admission media, and so forth, it can also give you access to your rooms. Unfortunately, that's not going to be a day one feature here. And the reason, I think, is because they have yet to add that technology to the hotels at Disneyland Resort, and rather than going through and adding it all at once and undercut that huge kind of upfront cost that Walt Disney World did so many years ago. I think they're going to be doing it on a rolling basis. So as these hotels come up for refurbishment, for example, I know Pixar Place is going through its kind of transformation process. Maybe we might see those features added at a later date rather than all at once. So,
yeah, and that's a huge endeavor, because in order to have that technology for those hotels, you have to go room by room and change the locking mechanisms and all that. It's a massive endeavor. So I can kind of understand why that's not going to premiere on opening day of this, and that's a pretty big endeavor. And then you also have the complication of these hotels have people staying there all while you're trying to do this. People that need to get in and out of their rooms, you can't be going ahead and swapping out the locking mechanisms and stuff. So I can see how it would be a logistical nightmare for them to figure out how to implement this for hotels where people are actively staying constantly. It's going to be a hard transition, I think, with that.
It would have otherwise would have been, if you have it though on a refurbishment schedule where a block of rooms comes online with this functionality and you can offer it to your guests, on kind of a rolling basis like that. I think it's a little bit more practical. Let's say it's a little bit more. I think you could do it in a much more fluid and efficient way. It's interesting. I was trying to get some information on this and I wasn't able to, but I think these MagicBand Plus bands actually have NFC built into them, which allow for NFC communications between mobile devices. So I think that's how they're getting away with, the photo pass operator and the front ticket cast members, so that you don't have to add anything extra. It's automatically or your mobile device that they give out is built in with the function to read the NFC tags on those bands themselves, because I think they're going with an active NFC technology in there. That's one of the benefits you get from being able to charge the device and having a battery on it, is you can actually, take that battery power and put it towards some other utilities. So it's kind of a clever way they're doing all this. It's a much more cost-effective way than even I was anticipating. I was like, well, one of the reasons why you're not going to get Magic Bands probably as admission media into these theme parks is because there's a lot of infrastructure. And then, it comes like, okay, well, are you still going to have to take pictures in order to, associate those Magic Bands and stuff like that? Is there any benefit? Well, if you can forego the installation costs and you're using mobile devices that you already have, a good cost-effective way of implementing that technology. So they're doing this pretty smart. We'll see if it catches on here. I think. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think one of the big sticking points for the original Magic Band rollout for Walt Disney World and kind of got Tom Staggs in trouble, I think, a little bit, was just how expensive that was to get going. So I think they've kind of learned lessons from that, utilize other methods to kind of make it a little more lean, a little more cost effective. It was bloated before quite a bit.
Well, and that was with the infrastructure that they had already put in place at Walt Disney World. Because it was a more modern resort, they had a lot more distinct advantages than maybe a Disneyland Resort would, because Disneyland Resort is so behind the eight ball in so many of its tech-driven features and infrastructure. I mean, it's, Chapek back in the day. This is a kind of an interesting story, because Chapek wanted to bring a lot of the required infrastructure for Disneyland Resort to get it more technologically driven in a way that it hadn't been before. With Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, interestingly enough, the idea was, let's debut a lot of this stuff in Galaxy's Edge proper on day one. Executives can see this as a wonderful proof of concept for more of these technological innovations to be imbued into the rest of Disneyland Resort, and then that way I could, Chapek could use that to kind of get the approval to undercut those costs. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out that way, and the pandy hit, and it's like, okay, well, maybe we should kind of rethink this a little bit. However, I think they still want to implement some of that infrastructure. I think they're just doing it in a much more cost-effective way, a smarter way. Like you said, they got in a little bit of trouble with some of that implementation at Walt Disney World, and I think they are looking to avoid that, but they still want to include some of these technological capabilities, not just with MagicBand Plus, but with other things. So how do you do that? Well, you go wireless. You go with handheld devices that you already have. You do it in a little bit of a smarter way. I think it's quite interesting. I think it's kind of like I said, I didn't think a lot of the functionality that people were talking about would come to fruition. Obviously, I kind of knew that the Lightning Lane stuff would come with it because they had it. They had installed those receptacles where you can actually stick your phone in, have the barcode scanned. Those RFID/NFC readers were on top there, just waiting to be activated, right? So I kind of knew that was coming, but to actually get admission media, I mean, or PhotoPass link ups, hey, I gotta give them credit. It's not just a toy; it's actually useful and functional, and that's for the guest demo at Disneyland Resort. That's a really important thing.
Yeah, and the thing too with the whole idea, like the Florida, the Walt Disney World Magic Bands won't work at Disneyland Resort. That's like a classic. It reminds me a lot actually of like how Apple does things. Like Apple does a lot of this where they'll like change like the ports on devices, so then you have to buy like all new chargers for your new device that the old chargers aren't compatible. It's like the old meme, it's like you need like 15 different attachments now.
Yeah, exactly.
To charge your phone,
so that's a picture of your desk right there.
Right there, yeah.
Is that it? Yeah.
And that's what this reminds me of, right? It's like they could have just given us a version or a compatible version of the Walt Disney World Magic Bands, and you can use them bi-coastally, right?
Right.
But there's no money in that. There's no money in that. So now the person from Florida, if they, let's say they have a Premier Pass, a bi-coastal pass or something, they're going to have to buy, I'm assuming a Magic Band Plus specific just for Disneyland, right? So it kind of forces people into buying another one, and it's a total Apple move, 100%.
It is a little bit of an Apple move. Ain't no question about that. Could they have installed scanners at the front of Disneyland and Disney California Adventure in order to, read the previous RFID chips that were embedded in your Magic Band? I suppose so, but where's the money in that? It's totally a move. I remember when, Android and some of these mobile devices moved from micro USB to USB-C. That was kind of a whole thing. As an innovative company as Disney, they're following the trends, and in more ways than one. Sometimes it's going to be good, sometimes it's going to be bad. We'll see. I mean, I'm curious what kind of technological innovations can come to the parks. I think there's a lot that they can implement, and that's part of my frustration with the parks right now, because it's like there's ways to make money if you do this or you do that, but. To get Magic Band Plus into the parks, I know a lot of people were excited about Magic Band technology being implemented at Zen Resort. Well, you got your wish. And they have committed themselves to, more features and so forth being rolled out down the line. We'll have to see what comes of that. Not super excited about another thing that I have to charge, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms too. From what I understand, the charging on these isn't great, which is again another Apple-esque thing.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
My phone doesn't get great charge. All my Apple devices, I mean, anything that requires a charge with Apple doesn't last more than 20 minutes. It's ridiculous. But that's they're definitely going in that route. But the charging thing is definitely a hassle. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate, but the fact that we got it all, you got to give them credit at least for that. I will reiterate, however, I do feel that the hotel thing will be coming for sure. And we might get might get more implementations of this technology distinct to the kind of Southern California market. A lot of people were like, hey, can I link my Magic Band? I'm sorry, not my Magic Band, but my yes, can I link my Magic Band to my Magic Key to my Magic Key, right? And that way it's like they don't provide me a card, unless you want to pay $20 for a paper printout,
Right.
which is insane. But they don't provide us a card. Wouldn't it be great if I could get my Magic Key discount on my Magic Band, so I can interact with kiosks, I can interact with ODV carts or vendors or maybe even restaurants. Wouldn't that be great? And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a straightforward thing to implement once you have this technology in place.
Well, now,
So
isn't it? Maybe I'm mistaken, but don't you already have your Magic Key in your band? Because that's how you get into the park, right? With it.
So
isn't it already in there?
Well, I mean, that's what they're kind of alluding to with this new video here. So your Magic Key, it looks like, is going to be, you are going to have that associated with your Magic Band at some level. Can you extend that out so that discounts can be applied? I think is kind of what they're looking for.
Interesting.
And honestly, it's like, well, yeah, that's pretty easy to implement once you've linked those two systems together.
Yeah.
And assuming that they have these mobile devices for waiters and waitresses, ODV carts, vendors, and so forth, you can do that quite easily. And I do think stuff like that, that's a much, let's say, there are less barriers to doing that than implementing Magic Bands in the first place. Once you're there, once you kind of got your foot into the door, so to speak, it's a lot easier to walk through it in ways that I think people really want for the Southern California market. I know I was getting into discussion with Laura's Misk Movie on Twitter, and kind of she was like, well, I'd like this and like this. And I'm like, hey, I wouldn't doubt that they're getting that feedback right now, and that they're looking to implement that at a later date. So we'll see.
Yeah, a lot of times with any of this stuff, just getting the foundation set is like the biggest battle. Like even like when you talk about big things, like a second park at Disneyland Resort, like DCA 1.0 is really disappointing. But you know what? Once we had the park set and the infrastructure built around it and all that, now they can go in and kind of fix things and work things. The hardest thing and the biggest hurdle for that was getting the park built in the first place. Once it's settled, now you can go in and adjust and do all that stuff. Same with here, with the Magic Band, okay. Once you get that infrastructure in, once it's kind of set, then you can go in there, like you said, and kind of, add things, take away things that don't work and all that. And it kind of smooth it out, make it a real clean process. So, I have high hopes for it. We'll see how it works out. The functionality end of it is the only thing I'm interested in. Couldn't care less, like I said earlier, about the flashy light stuff. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how it all pans out. But Dre, brother, as always, I want to thank you for coming on today and talking Magic Key and talking Bob Chapek with me. It was a lot of fun. If you could let everyone at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Well, the best place to find me is going to be at Vashguy on Twitter. It's right there. We got over 1,000. Yes, that's fan-friggin-tastic. I've been, like I said, I've been on the platform for years and years and years. I won't say how long, but I've been on there for a long time. Do you remember when Captain EO last showed at Disneyland? That's about how long I've been on there. It's been a while.
Jeez.
So, the finally getting over 1,000 is fantastic. I really do appreciate, everyone on that. That has been fantastic. If you want to go ahead and follow me, you can follow me right there. Or if you want to see me in video form, well, you can go ahead and do so on the channel you're watching right now at Orange Code 55 at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
But really, nothing compares with a freshly squeezed.
There you go. Nothing compares.
Perfect. And everyone at home, thank you for watching. Comment down below with your opinions on Bob Chapek doing this move where he sat down with fan sites, kind of crazy. And also your opinions on Magic Band Plus. We have a lot of great content coming up in the days and weeks ahead. There was some news, which I'm surprised a lot of people are not reporting on, about Disneyland Forward.
Yes.
Which is actually very, very encouraging news. And we'll be reporting on that fairly soon. We're going to try to do a video with Mr. Theme Park Wizard, all centered around like Universal and that competition factor with Disney. We've been planning that for a while. Your boy OG has had some back problems, 43. It's what happens when you hit my age. So I've been kind of out of commish for a little bit, and that's kind of been slowing some of these collabos down, but I'm feeling much better, and we're going to get back on track again, and just really excited about all the great content. But again, thank you all for your support over the last six years. Dre, myself, Disney Family Man 23, we all appreciate the support. Thank you. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.